Douglas C. McCall, known as the identity doctor, is someone who consistently challenges you to think about how your choices shape your present and how your presence shapes your impact. Tonight, he's taking us into a story that begins with in an unexpected place, and ends with a question that will linger longer after this speech is over. He won't be asking you to learn a new skill as much as he'll be inviting you to notice something you've been practicing for a long time, and often without even realizing. So please help me welcome this evening Mr. Douglas McCall, presenting Crossroads. Crossroads, Mr. Douglas McCall.
I love the bench. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. The end of a softball bench in central New York, where an elementary school kid named Doug sat every Saturday and learned how identity gets built. My mother loved softball. Spring and summer, she played in the league, and I was her quiet, faithful spectator. No iPad, no Nintendo Switch. This was a pre-handheld computer civilization. I just watched whole games, every inning, every at-bat. And when we weren't at that field, my neighborhood did what every 1980s neighborhood did. We went outside. It was a small suburban block with a mini baby boom, which meant kids everywhere. Unless it was snowing sideways, and in central New York, it often was, we were outside until the street lights came on. We turned whatever space we had into a playing field. My favorite was street ball. Baseball, improvised. When I was younger, I played the outfield because that's where you put the kids who weren't ready for prime time yet. But I got better. The summer before sixth grade, I begged my mom to let me join Mr. Lindemeyer's summer baseball league. All my friends were playing. I wanted to get serious. And even though she was recently divorced and raising 3 kids all by herself, she scraped together the money. I played in that league for 3 summers. And by the end of 8th grade, Coach Lindemeyer pulled me aside and said, "Doug, you should think about trying out for junior varsity baseball next year." I stood there, stunned, because I didn't think of myself as an athlete. I didn't watch sports. I didn't trade cards. I couldn't name anyone's stats. I thought of myself as sports adjacent. But here was someone I respected say, "You could be good at this." That sentence mattered because almost everyone else in my life had poured into a different version of me. Choir, theater, band. Music people would look at me and say, "You're gifted." Theater people would say, "You belong here." This was the first time someone said, "You could belong somewhere else, too." And suddenly, 13-year-old me was standing at my first real crossroads, not between baseball and music, but between 2 stories about who I was allowed to be. Here's what took me years to understand. When the pressure rises, we fall back on our identity. Not the identity we talk about, the identity we practice. So the ineffable question at a crossroads is not, what do I want to do? It's, who am I when it counts? At 13, I chose the music folder, not because I hated baseball. I loved it. I loved the sound of the ball hitting the leather. I loved the quiet focus of a pitcher staring down a batter. I loved the way the team could feel like a small family for a whole summer. But on that day I had to choose, I could hear 2 different rooms calling my name. So I did what most kids do when a decision feels too big. I chose the room where I already knew the rules. I still played street ball with my friends. To this day, if you put a glove in my hand, I want to find a game. But when it came time to choose focus, I defaulted to what I had practiced. And throughout my life, there would be more crossroads. Fast forward to my late 20s. Newly married, two small kids, not nearly enough money. So I told myself I should become a school principal. That's stability. So I earned a second master's degree. I filled out applications nonstop. I walked into the interview with a suit, a portfolio, and what I thought were the right answers. And I was rejected. Not once, not twice, but 70 times. One interview in particular stands out. A panel sat behind a long table, serious faces, neat stacks of paper. One person asked, "What would your staff say about you after a hard week?" And in that one question, my script collapsed because the honest answers could not be found in my notes. I walked out of that room knowing something I had avoided for years. The interviews weren't authentic. I was performing. I was trying to sound like an administrator, but I was showing up as a music teacher wearing an administrator costume. And everyone but me could see it. That realization hurt. But you know what? It also freed me. Because once I finally admitted what I had been practicing all along, I stopped forcing myself down a path that was never mine. I put the applications away and I stepped back into the identity that had been steady through every season of my life. Your identity is not who you say you are. It is how you consistently show up when it counts. And that's why I still love the bench. The bench is where you practice who you are long before it's your turn. The bench is where you learn patience, humility, and awareness, where you watch how other people respond under pressure, where you notice who blames the umpire, who blames the team, and who quietly adjusts and gets ready for the next play. And the bench is where you make a decision most people never name. Will I only show up when I'm chosen? Or will I show up because this is who I am? So if you want to change how you show up when it counts, don't wait for the big moment. Practice now in the small choices that feel ordinary. Because when the street lights come on, when the pressure rises, when the decision is heavy, you will not rise to the occasion. You will rise to who you are. I am Douglas McCall, and I am the result of 1,000 quiet crossroads, each one nudging me closer to the person I was always meant to be. So let me leave you with a question that keeps finding me. When you're standing there at your crossroads, who are you going to be? Mr. Toastmaster.